Beautiful. So we're going to start today. What we're going to do is we are going to do, let me go to my book chapter. We're going to work on this book, A Daily Dose of Pesukim of Bitachon, Verses of Bitachon. And we're going to go into chapter 44. So chapter 44 is going to be all the way on page 169, and we are recording. So that's good. Okay. So we're going to go into chapter 44. And let's jump right into it. And then I'm actually going to explain or share something that we find in another book on Bitachon that I've mentioned several times, the Madregas Ha'adam. And I'll put the link in our email in case you guys also want to buy this book, which we haven't studied together, but it's going to come in very handy today. Okay, so here Rabbi Sutton has titled this chapter "Your Heart's Desires." Your heart's desires. So let's see what he's talking about. He's talking about a verse in Tehillim, in Psalms, that David HaMelech says, "And rely upon Hashem for your enjoyments, for He will grant you the desires of your heart." So many of us might be familiar with this verse. It does come up often, especially in classes on Bitachon and so on and so forth. So I know like Michael Safdie, for example, mentions it very, very often in his daily, what is it called? Daily Bitachon, I think it's called. No, whatever it is, the WhatsApp group. Anyway, and so Rabbi Sutton says the following. Okay, so let's go back. Again, the Tehillim says, and rely upon Hashem for your enjoyments. You see the word here at the beginning of the pasuk, at the beginning of the verse. It's vehi tanag al Hashem. So it's talking about tainug. It's talking about enjoyment, pleasure. For He will grant you the desires of your heart. If you see at the end, veiten lecha mishalot livecha. Okay, so if we rely on Hashem for the things we enjoy, when does that enjoyment start? When does that enjoyment start? If someone is planning a big vacation, when does he start enjoying it? You know, they say like experiences are a better investment than things, right? Because the experience, when you put your deposit for the experience, the trip that you're going, you're already in your head, it already sparking the joy of the experience, right? And then you live the experience, and that there's the joy of the experience, and then afterwards you have the memories of the experience. So there's like this longer like savoring of the experience. This is a very typical conversation in the world of personal finance when we talk about, you know, what's a better investment, buying things or buying experiences, and as it relates to well-being. So the according to psychology, investing in experiences yields bigger dividends, so to speak, right? Because we savor it before, then we enjoy it as we're going through the experience, and then afterwards we're savoring all the memories of the experience. So okay, so if someone is planning a vacation, when does he start enjoying them, right? And if his feeling of delight doesn't ignite until he gets there, because maybe he tells himself the traveling is going to be a hassle, or maybe the weather is going to be bad, or maybe the bed in the hotel won't be comfortable, etc., 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 right? He doesn't fully trust Hashem to grant him a wonderful vacation. So if the person doesn't get excited, he holds his excitement of the experience until he gets to live the experience at that moment, is because he's not fully relying that Hashem is going to give him a wonderful experience. Otherwise, he would be so excited, right? You would be so excited for your sister's wedding, or for your trip with your sister or your mother or your brother or your family, whatever it is. If not, then what is it that's happening there that you're not trusting that experience is going to be so amazing? So this person he wants to see it first. He wants to see the experience first, and then he'll allow himself to feel the emotion of delight and gladness and happiness that he's in that experience, right? So the Brisker Rav says that this pasuk shows us a higher level of bitachon, because this pasuk is telling us that you need to rely upon Hashem, right? You need to take pleasure, to rely upon Hashem for your enjoyments. Vehitanag al Hashem veiten lecha. Okay, so you enjoy your reliance, like an enjoyment of like you're enjoying it. Okay, before he's going to grant you the desires of your heart. So before he's even granted you the desires of your heart, you're already in that state of real excitement. That is a higher level of bitachon, right? Much higher than the person who says, no, until I get there and I see if really it panned out to be as great as I want it to be, I'm not going to let it's like that. I'm not going to let myself get too happy, too excited. It's like that attitude, like I'm just going to cover, I'm going to, what is it? It's like that cynicism, like, just in case the other shoe's going to drop, like I'm not going to let go too much, right? I can't really be content and enjoy, because God forbid something might go wrong. So then why would I set myself up for disappointment? That's totally not bitachon, or a very low level of bitachon. Okay. So we can trust in Hashem. A higher level of bitachon is that we can trust in Hashem so completely that our enjoyment begins even before the fact, even before we get to see the hotel and the palm trees and the beach and whether the room is nice or the bed or whatever. We're already excited that we're going on this vacation, or that we're going, whatever it is that we're doing. He uses the example of someone who makes a business deal. Okay. So what happens? And we're going to bring the Hayom Yom from the Rebbe, because he also brings something very, very similar. So this is what the Brisker Rav is saying. He uses the example of a business person. At a lower level of bitachon, the person will not enjoy the accomplishment until the money's in his hands, right? The other shoe might drop. Yes, the deal is closed. Yes, we signed the contract, but until I have the money in my hand, I'm not enjoying it. I'm not savoring the success here. Okay. Now that's a low level of bitachon. At a higher level of bitachon, the money is figuratively in his hands the moment the deal is closed, or perhaps even before that. Hashem's goodness is in this person's pocket from the moment he thinks of it, because he will grant you the desires of your heart, as David HaMelech says, right? So he's in full confidence that if David HaMelech said it, it's true. He's going to grant me the desires of my heart. So if I know that this deal is, if I'm working on this deal and this deal is it's going through, I'm already excited, as though this thing is already in my hands, as though the money is in the bank. And we have here, I've mentioned it several times, but let's look at it inside for a second. Let me see if 1 second. Okay, let's jump into the Hayom Yom for a second, and then we'll continue inside the Rabbi Sutton's book. So in the Hayom Yom, okay, this is a beautiful. Oh, Marcy's here. Welcome, Marcy. This is a beautiful sefer. Actually, it's very nice to have and read every day. The Rebbe made a compilation of aphorisms that his late father-in-law, the 6th Lubavitcher Rebbe, had asked to be put together, and it's called the Hayom Yom. Every day there's a little message for the day. So in the Hayom Yom of the 16th of Adar Sheni, of the 2nd Adar, the Rebbe says the following. He says, as one of his spiritual tasks, a businessman. So before I continue, now we understand that businessman has also spiritual tasks, right? There's an avoda that needs to be part of a person, even a person who's in business, not just a Torah scholar, but a person who's involved in business in the world has spiritual tasks to accomplish. Now the Rebbe says, as one of his spiritual tasks that is particular to the business person should arouse within himself the faith and absolute trust. And I want to read the words in Hebrew. 1 second. Okay. Le'orar be'atzmo, arouse within himself. Ha'emuna bitachon gamor, absolute. Ha'emuna bitachon gamor, absolute. And I'm saying this actually because it's very interesting. Today, Jem put out it came in my feed today. I'm going to continue in a second. It came in my feed today, but maybe they posted it a few days ago. You know how the algorithm works. But Jem posted a video on social media, and it was about, it said, trusting God, something. Okay. And it was a certain author or wanted to publish a book and went to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe asked about the book, or the author shared with the Rebbe that he didn't have the funds to finish publishing the book. And the Rebbe told them that the money comes from Hashem, and that and the Rebbe quotes a Rashi and says that the most important thing is for him to know that the money is coming from Hashem, Oh, no. He says the money's coming from Hashem, and he tells him a Rashi, and then at the end of the encounter, when he gives the man dollars, and he gives the man, the author, $1, and the author is about to walk away, he says, and the most important thing is that you should have bitachon in Hashem, that you should trust Hashem. And unfortunately, when they put the captions, they said, even though the title of the video, they made a very nice video about it with, like, you know how they put little other images, not just the Rebbe talking, but they insert kind of like images that refer to what the situation is, and they had like dollar bills and whatever it is, right? The title of the video with those little images was Trust in Hashem and Trust in God. And then when they did the subtitles of what the Rebbe was saying, they said at the end, when the Rebbe specifically, I turned on the audio so I could hear the Rebbe's words, because it caught my attention that the subtitles said, and the most important thing is that you should have faith in God. And I said, well, that's not what the Rebbe said, I'm sure. And I unmuted the thing and I listened to it. And the Rebbe says, and the most important thing is that you should have bitachon in Hashem. Right. And it's very important that we understand the difference, because the Lubavitcher Rebbe himself many times said to many people that emunah and bitachon is not the same thing. So when we say bitachon, we're talking about bitachon. We're not talking about faith. Faith is it's belief. It's important, right? We've talked about it many times, but that's the beginning. That's the tree, right? Bitachon is the fruit. You cannot have bitachon without faith, 100%, right? But you can have plenty of faith, you have plenty of tree and no fruit, right? You don't have to have the fruit. You can just have the tree. You can have plenty of faith and what we're learning in this class is it's not a muna, it's a class on bitachon, right? And what the Rebbe is saying here is that this businessman should arouse within himself the faith and absolute trust, ubitachon gamor, that he who nourishes and sustains all flesh will grant him an ample living. Okay, so what's the businessman's spiritual task? One of his spiritual tasks is he needs to arouse himself, that complete and absolute faith and bitachon, and complete reliance, dependence, exclusive reliance, that he who sustains and nourishes everyone, all flesh, all of creation, right? He's going to grant him personally, that businessman, ample living. And then what? Yeah, ample living. It says, I was just checking the Hebrew. He should genuinely be happy and glad of heart. Listen to this. He should genuinely be happy and glad of heart, as if his livelihood had already been placed before him. Ke'ilu parnasato kvar, already, as though his parnasa already I can't see. Mesumenes lefanav. It's in front of him. It's been placed in front of him. So he needs to already be happy, genuinely happy, says the Rebbe, and glad in his heart, as though he has it in front of him. So this is exactly what we're learning in the book today. Okay. So that the person with the higher level of bitachon, which is what the Rebbe is referring to as the expectation, as the service, the avoda, the spiritual service of a businessman. He's expected, part of his spiritual service is to have this higher level of bitachon, that he is engaged in this business, knowing with absolute trust that he's going to be taken care of amply, says the Rebbe, amply. And he's so happy and joyful, as though he has it in front of him, even though he hasn't closed the deal, right? It's in front of him. It's ready. The wire already came into the bank account, and you open the bank account, it's in front of you. You can see it. Okay, so going back to here, so the same thing he's saying here back in page 169. Okay, the money is figuratively in his hands the moment the deal is closed, or perhaps even before that. Hashem's goodness is in this person's pocket from the moment he thinks of it, because he will grant you the desires of your heart. Because David HaMelech told us, that's it. So the Ben Yehoyada and Brachos and other commentators explain that the great Hillel waited until Friday to shop for his Shabbos food, because he trusted that Hashem would provide him with the best of everything whenever he chose to buy it. You know, you could say, I'm not going to wait till Friday because there's not going to be the best produce left, or there's not going to be any, chicken left, or the fish is going to be smelly, or whatever it might be, right? No, so he trusted that he's going to have the best of everything whenever he went to buy it. He felt as if he already had what he needed. Although this is a very high level, it's worthwhile to know that there are human beings who reach such a level. And on this level, we can have enjoyment from Hashem's gifts even before they reach our hands. So at this high level, we can actually be in that state of excitement and joy, as though when we book the ticket to the vacation, we're already excited, even though we are not there and we didn't check out if the room was nice or the weather was good, right? We're already savoring the experience as though we're living it, and we haven't even, it's weeks away. So, okay, so now luxury is included. So now he says further, the Brisker Rav says that this level of bitachon is appropriate even if our heart's desire is a luxury. So even if it's not, we're not talking about a need. And notice that when I read the Hayom Yom, the Rebbe said ample livelihood. He didn't say living. Oh, he was with absolute trust that he who nourishes and sustains all flesh will grant him an ample living. He didn't say he will grant it, he will sustain him. He didn't say he will grant him livelihood. He said ample living. So we have to understand that the nuances here in the language, okay? And here the Brisker Rav is going to say something very, very similar. That this verse, he says, does not specify needs, but rather expands the reach of our bitachon to everything we might wish to have. Because remember, go back to the pasuk. What does David HaMelech says? He will grant you the desires of your heart. I don't know when was the last time you felt the desires of your heart, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't just bread and water. I'm pretty sure it was a lot more ample and luxurious than that, right? We all have a lot more desires than just our basic necessities, okay? Sometimes even luxuries. By every calculation, they might be luxuries, and that's okay. And David HaMelech is saying that you can rely on Hashem for your enjoyments, for he will grant you the desires of your heart. And the Brisker Rav agrees that it means luxuries. As evidence supporting this point, Balei Bitachon relate an argument between two great rabbis, Rabbi Israel Salanter and the Rashash, about whether a person could have bitachon for luxuries, right? Is it okay? I mean, it's okay to have bitachon, but do you also have to have bitachon for all the extras? Okay, so let's see what happens. This pasuk is exactly what's cited as a source because it says your heart's desire. And that means anything that your heart desires, even if it seems, far-fetched, that you can rely on. If you rely on Hashem, then you should be enjoying that he's going to grant you that which you desire. They further prove the point with a story from the Gemara. I'm going to read you the story, and then we're going to learn what he says here, and then we're going to learn the story also inside the book, the Madrigas Adam, which explains it also beautifully. So this is the story from the Gemara. There was a man who once came to Rava for tzedakah. He came to ask for charity, and Rava asked the man, what are you accustomed to eating? What do you usually eat? And the man said, I eat fattened hen and aged wine. Can you imagine? Right? So he asked for really fancy food. Imagine aged wine, a nice wine, and a fattened hen, expensive delicacies. And Rava said, excuse me, don't you think it's a bit much? You're asking for tzedakah, you're asking for the finest meal here, you're putting a burden on the community. Who comes ask for tzedakah and ask for the biggest luxury? But the man replied that he had no such concern. After all, he wasn't taking the food from the community. It was coming from Hashem. As it says, and he quoted the pasuk from Tehillim, the eyes of all look to you Hashem, with hope, and you give them food in his proper time. Okay, so here it says it's, but actually we're going to read another translation and we're going to explain that it says his proper time. Okay, so at that moment, what happened? So after the beggar responded to Rava and quoted the verse that Hashem provides him and provides people with food at the proper time. Who knocks on the door? Rava's sister, whom he hadn't seen in about 12 years. 13 years. He came to visit him. And what does she come with? She comes with a whole big tray or your basket or whatever it is, a fattened hen and aged wine to celebrate their encounter. Rava then looked at the man, gave the food to the man because it was clear that the man's bitachon had brought it to the door. So it's similar to a story of Reb Susha, which, if you remind me, I'll tell it a little bit later because I want to continue with this story. Let me just finish what Rabbi Sutton says here. He says, we see from this story that Hashem responded to this man's bitachon by supplying the luxuries that he trusted Hashem to provide. So bitachon is not just for the bare minimum. If you want a gold watch or a top-of-the-line new car, it comes from the same place as your bread and butter because there is only one source. So it's not like Hashem just supplies the bread and butter, and then your business and your great real estate transaction is the one that provides the gold watch. It doesn't work like that, okay? It's just one source, capital S. There is only one source to rely on, and as we've learned numerous times, when we rely on Hashem completely, he comes through. So I want to go into the Madrigas Adam, and I'm going to... the Darkei Habitachon, and I'm going to read to you from chapter 2 what the Altar of Novardok explains on this story, okay? And so he brings the story as he's obviously talking about Bitachon, and he says that the poor man came to Rabbah asked for a meal. The same idea. He asked that this is a story in the Gemara, and Rabbah asked the man, on what do you customarily dine? So the man answered, on fattened hens and aged wine. And like I told you before, Rabbah was very surprised. Rabbah said and asked in wonderment, and are you not concerned about imposing hardship upon the community to support you so lavishly? Like, seriously, it's a bit too much, right? So what did the poor man answer him, as we just read? Am I then eating from that which is theirs? Like, do I eat from the community? I don't eat from the community. I'm eating from that which belongs to the merciful one. I eat from the hand, from God's hand. I don't eat from anybody else's hand. Why? The poor man says, because the Brisa taught from Tehillim, the verse in Tehillim, the eyes of all look to you, Hashem, with hope, and you, Hashem, give them their food in his time. It does not state in their times, but rather in his time, okay? So he explains here, this switch from the plural to the singular teaches that Hashem provides the provisions for each individual in his proper time. And at that point, as I told you before, the story goes on in the Gemara. So the author is explaining, okay, here the nuance of the language is very important. That is singular. It's not plural. The singular is telling that it's individual for each person in his proper time, at the time that they want it. And at that point, Rava's sister comes and knocks on the door. She hadn't seen him in 13 years. And what did she bring? She brought for him a fattened hen and aged wine as a gift, intended for Rava. And Rava explained, what is this that has happened before my eyes? He then said to the pauper, I said too much when I criticized you. Come and eat your food. He gives him the food. He realized, oh my goodness, like this man literally eats from Hashem. I criticized them. I said, don't you have a little bit of chutzpah, like to ask for such lavish food? Look, the lavish food came on the door. This Gemara clearly demonstrates that the power of trust in Hashem is so strong that there is nothing too foreign, distant, or removed from its reach, to the point that the true master of Bitachon knows without question, guys, that he is not expected to live a life of constraining limits. Rather, it is always within his ability to obtain his usual sustenance according to his accustomed lifestyle. So something that tends to happen a lot is that we limit Hashem. Like, why are you limiting Hashem? Just because you have limits in your head doesn't mean that Hashem is not limited. So we're creating a certain reality by imposing certain limits. So here it's teaching us to really have an expansive mind and understand that Hashem has no limits. And here we see that if the poor man was used to very fancy food, he can demand of Hashem very fancy food, right? Because Hashem has no limits. And he's going to, not only can he demand it, he's actually going to get it because of his absolute trust that that's what Hashem provides, that he doesn't eat from anybody else. He eats from Hashem. And it's Hashem who's providing him the fancy food. Okay, and if he's accustomed to fattened hens and aged wine, This too he will attain by following the path of trust. That's how he's going to get it. For once he relies on Hashem for his sustenance and eats from that which belongs to the merciful one, right? That's what those were his words. I eat from the merciful one. It all belongs to him, and he's the one who gives it to me. There is no reason to set limits upon his reliance, because the merciful one, Hashem, has plenty to go around, right? So if I eat from him, right, then why am I putting limits, right? If my father is a trillionaire, a gazillionaire, I don't say maybe buy just like a little bit of like a saltine crackers and we'll just have that for dinner. I don't say that, right? I don't think like that, because why would I be putting limits, right, to what's going to be for dinner? Because it doesn't make any sense. Havdil, this is the concept, right? Why are we putting limits on the one who has everything? And instead fully and absolutely relying that he has everything and that he has it meted out for me. Okay, so to say that this, so 1 second. There's no reason to set limits up on his reliance. What does limits up on his reliance means? It means to say that for this much, he's allowed to trust in Hashem. Okay, so for bread and butter or for saltine crackers, okay, sure, I'm going to trust in Hashem that he's not going to leave me hungry. While for that much, for fattened hens and wine, it makes no sense to do so. Or to say that in this situation, it is possible to trust in Hashem, while in that situation, it is impossible to do so. No. Absolute reliance on the one who has everything. So there's no limit. We don't put limits. In this situation, yes. In that situation, no. For this amount, yes. Or for this type of thing, yes. And that one, no. For the powers of Hashem, surely no bounds. So there's a note here that I want to say, I don't think it's Rabbi Sutton's book, actually. There's a note here that Art Scroll put. I don't know who wrote it. I thought it was Rabbi Sutton because he did the Beis Halevi, but no, it's Rabbi Weiss. Okay. So in the note here, it says, when the source of one's reliance is limitless, he can truly expect to receive anything a person can need or want, assuming, of course, that it is permitted and proper. Obviously, like it goes without saying, right? One of the qualifications for bitachon to be bitachon is obedience. So it has to be kosher. You can't, obviously. We all believe that Hashem is not bound by nature or by human frailty. So why do we place limits upon how or what he will provide for us? The Alter is teaching us that Hashem's limitless power is the source of our bitachon, and we can rely on it to obtain anything and everything. Okay, so thus, once he makes up his mind, absolutely, that Hashem will certainly provide for him according to what he's used to, he can actually feel more secure in this guaranteed sustenance than he can feel secure about the money that he already has in his wallet. Look at this statement. So once the person is convinced, absolutely convinced and certain, right, that Hashem is going to provide for him for whatever it is. In this case, it's the hen and the fattened hen and the H1, because that's what he usually eats. And he eats from Hashem. Therefore, it's guaranteed. There's no question that he's going to get it. It's not Rava who's providing it. It's not the community. It's Hashem. It's just might come through, but he's not eating directly from it. He eats from Hashem. Well, so once he knows that, he actually can feel more secure in that guarantee, in that sustenance that's guaranteed to him, than in money that he already has in his wallet. Why? Because that money, says the Alter of Novardok, is not protected from bandits or other factors that can cause its loss, which is not the case regarding the sustenance coming to him through his elevated bitachon, as it is guaranteed from all misfortune. So this is like, it's a crazy concept. But then he says here in the notes, when does a person worry about his sustenance and his debts? When he looks into his bank accounts and sees nothing. When he receives his wages, that is when he feels somewhat secure, somewhat in control, right? We all fall into this trap. And this is the fallacy that we want to be aware of and not fall into, right? The whole idea is not to let our bank accounts control our emotions. So he worries about his sustenance and his debt, and then suddenly there's a little money on the bank, and now he's calm. Now he's not worried. Now he's relaxed. Well, that obviously we've learned enough to know that that's a lie. In actuality, the opposite is true. Money that one has can be stolen, it can be taken away, it can be used up by unforeseen expenses occasioned by any one of 100 emergencies that can arise in but a moment, right? It's here one moment and it's gone the next. Only the sustenance that one trusts will come from Hashem is truly safe. So again, we're talking about a very, very high level of bitachon. The Alter of Novardok notes another point that can be deduced from this Gemara. So he's going to share with us another idea here about the fact that the beggar, the poor man, is not actually taking anything from anyone, from the community. So let's see. Furthermore, we see that the master of bitachon need not concern himself with imposing hardship upon the community with his bitachon, for he is unwavering in his trust that he eats from that which belongs to the merciful one. And in actuality, the community gives him nothing, and all that he has is but a gift from Hashem. It's not the community who's feeding him, it's Hashem. And this, we have seen, is exactly what occurred in the incident described in the Gemara. For before the pauper came to ask him for a meal, Rava did not have a fattened hen and aged wine. He didn't have it. He didn't have to give it to him. It's the man's bitachon that elicited that it came to Rava and to the community. It was specifically at the time that the poor guest came to him that Rava's sister, who had not seen him for 13 years, came as well, and she brought with her a fattened hen and aged wine. We see then that in this instance, it was not the community that gave these items to the guest from its own resources. Rather, to the contrary, on the occasion of the poor man's arrival, the community received more resources because of him. You know, it's like in the Shar Bitachon, we learn an important principle, that is that the Baal Bitachon, the master of Bitachon, brings blessing to those around him. I don't know if you guys remember this part, right? But this is exactly what's happening here. Furthermore, it is even possible that Rava himself also partook of the fattened hen, because it probably is enough for 10 people, no, but at least for 3, for Rava, his sister, the poor man, right? For the guest would surely not have eaten the entire hen himself. It emerges then that in the episode, not only did the poor man not take anything from Rava's household or the community, but he actually gave them more than they had before, right? He added more. Why? Because of his bitachon. Okay, so he doesn't take, he adds because of his bitachon. And there's a note here that says, the argument can seemingly be made that if the Baal Bitachon exerts no effort at all in obtaining his livelihood, surely someone will have to do it for him, and thus he will wind up being a burden upon the larger community, straining its resources. The Alter of Novardok proves from the Gemara, just cited, that this is not the case. Obviously, we're talking at a very high level of Bitachon before anybody's like the cynic in the brain goes like, oh, no, but there's people around that we have to support in the communities. Okay, this is not talking about that. We're talking about a very high level of bitachon to understand that we also can't fool ourselves. Like, we can't just say, well, you know, like I'm about bitachon and so I don't have to work and I'll just, you know, the community will support me. That's not what we're talking about. Okay, we're talking about really, really, really having such a level of trust here that we don't eat from anybody else. We eat like him, straight from Hashem. So the lesson for the Baal Bitachon is a powerful one. He says, the Alter of Novardok says, it is therefore clear to us then that one who trusts in Hashem with the true bitachon we speak of cannot be considered one who casts his needs upon the community to supply them, for he's not doing this at all. He doesn't cast his burden upon the community. Rather, he casts his needs upon the Creator. And rather than being burdened by this, the community will gain greater resources on account of him. So they're not burdened by this. They're actually gaining from the Baal Bitachon. This is, as our sages of blessed memory have shown us, from that poor man that came before Rava. For the community did not give him anything at all. Rather, it was only because of his Bitachon that it came about that he received a fattened hen upon which to dine. This is clear from the fact that Rava's sister brought him precisely at that time, specifically a fattened hen and aged wine, and not any other type of food, but specifically what the man had said that he's accustomed to eating. And the man had said to Rava, when Rava complained, I don't eat from you in the community, I eat from Hashem. And that's exactly what happened. We see that Hashem provided for the pauper what he was accustomed to having with exact precision. And as a result of his bitachon, benefit was realized by the other members of the community as well, because again, their resources increased. They weren't decreased, for it is quite reasonable to say that those of Rava's household also ate of the largesse that was provided through the poor man's bitachon. The lesson that emerges for us from this Gemara is that a condition of true bitachon is that a person must be so strong and unwavering in his trust in Hashem that it is all the same to him whether he is in a place where it is likely that events will turn out as he desires, or a place where it is unlikely that events will transpire as he desires. Meaning there's no limits and there's no calculations by the Baal Bitachon. Whether it's, I mean, he could have said, well, obviously in this house, there's no hen and aged wine, and it's a very simple household. That there's no calculation like that, and or calculation. Oh, I'm going to impose that on the community. No, 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 no. He says, say here, it doesn't matter whether the conditions are set for that, and we do this all the time. Oh, I don't know, right? No, there's no, I don't know. There's no limits. There's no conditions. For his location makes no difference at all. Just like the poor man that came before Rava, who found himself in a situation where under normal circumstances, it should have been nearly impossible for him to obtain what he was accustomed to eating, for even Rava originally thought that the parameters of bitachon do not allow one to assume that he will merit to receive this. Yet, despite all this, the poor man stood his ground with absolute conviction, born of his trust in Hashem, and he said, am I then eating from that which is theirs? Am I eating from that which belongs to the merciful one? Who am I eating from, Rava? I eat from the merciful one, not from your community. And Hashem sent him what he required. Similarly, it must be the same to a person, whether he is found among people or in a place where there are no people to help him, etc., etc. And then I'm going to continue. And so in the eyes of the Baal Bitachon, all times and places will be equal, for he knows that the place does not play a role in what one will receive, and what seems to be the natural order of events does not truly cause anything to happen, because he lives above the natural order. He lives with Bitachon, which is living above the natural order of events. Rather, if he resolves to place the responsibility for the resolution of all of his life's challenges upon his trust in Hashem, then Hashem is his security, which is what we say in Tehillim. And to the Creator, there is, of course, no difference between a place where catalysts to provide sustenance are readily available and a place where nothing is prepared at all. It doesn't make a difference to Hashem. The circumstances are nothing to Hashem. He can send the sustenance where there's, where the chances are that the deal is going to close, or if you're in the middle of a desert where there's no business deals to close, right? For he will find himself to be, and in all times and all situations, the Baal Bitachon will adhere to his trust in Hashem, never wavering from it, for he will find himself to be so strong in his Bitachon that all his needs will be guaranteed. A footnote here tells us the Alter makes an important point here. Bitachon begets bitachon. As one strives to strengthen his trust in Hashem, and that trust yields fruit, he will find that his bitachon becomes even stronger. And there's another note here that says that indeed Rava initially questioned, and we saw it clearly. It's very clear in the Gemara that Rava initially questioned the man, asking him why he was not concerned that his seemingly unreasonable request was unduly burdening the community, right? But when Rava saw that heaven had sent the man his request, he admitted that he had been incorrect in his criticism of the poor man. So this is the idea that we're talking about here when David HaMelech says to us, and rely upon Hashem for your enjoyments. Again, we're talking about we're talking about luxuries. We're talking about fattened hen and aged wine. Why? For he will grant you the desires of your heart. Is that's what David HaMelech told us. Okay, so Shabbos delight. So Rabbi Sutton gives us a very nice reminder here about the fact that we have something called the Shabbat. And every week we have this beautiful opportunity to receive our heart's desires, and that comes in the form of Shabbat. Citing our verse, the Gemara teaches that anyone who delights in Shabbat receives his heart's desire. So this is very beautiful. The Gemara brings this to Tehillim to talk about the enjoyment of Shabbos, how we should enjoy Shabbos, and how that leads us to have what we desire. Shabbos is a way for us to rejoice with Hashem. And Shabbos is all about bitachon, right? Shabbos is saying, you know what? Whatever needed to be, whatever I needed to accomplish, it's already accomplished. Like, it's done. That's it. Whether I like it, not like it, whether I had bigger expectations, lower expectations, whatever it is, this is it. I'm surrendering. The time is now time for Hashem. It's completely holy and separate from anything mundane. And that's it. And my sustenance is going to come. And not only that, I'm going to actually make it splendid. I eat the best foods and I wear my best clothes and I put out the best, the nicest china and the nicest things on the table, right? I'm completely delighting on this day, regardless of whether I finished my business, I closed my deals, didn't close my deals, didn't finish, the money came in, the money came out, whatever it is, right? We shut down our businesses. We enjoy Hashem's presence and rely on him completely, because we are not undertaking any kind of productive or creative endeavors. That's it. We're not doing anything to make any money. We are leaving the running of the world in Hashem's hands. All the enjoyment of the day comes from our interactions with him. And as a result, he gives us our heart's desires. So it's all bitachon. Shabbos is a day all of bitachon. That means that our oneg Shabbos, our delight on Shabbos, our pleasure of Shabbos comes from our bitachon. This is built into our week, which is such a kindness from Hashem, right? It's built into our week, enabling us to receive our heart's desire, even if we're not yet on the level of trusting Hashem for all our enjoyments in life. So even if we're not at the level, which none of us are, well, I shouldn't say that, but at least I'm not at the level of the pauper in the Gemara story talking to Rabbah, right? But even if we're not at that level, Hashem gives us this opportunity of having Shabbos, which is the time that Hashem then rewards by giving us our heart's desires. It is a boost that lets us see what life is like for the greatest Balei Bitachon. That's what life is. It's like where they just receive the most beautiful thing, right? Without doing anything. Just like on Shabbos, we don't do anything and everything is beautiful. Who have Hashem's blessings in their pocket, not only on Shabbos, but every single day. All right, so a recap of the chapter. The Brisker Rav says that someone with a high level of bitachon takes enjoyment in Hashem's gifts even before he receives them, because he feels guaranteed that they will come. Just like the Lubavitcher Rebbe said in the Hayom Yom of the 16th of Kedihimos, we said 16th of Adar Sheni, right? We have to feel it as though the livelihood had already been placed before him, right? The promise that Hashem will give the Baal Bitachon, his heart's desire, means that he can even have bitachon for luxuries, right? That's what it's saying here in the pasuk. Built into Shabbos is the opportunity to rely on Hashem for all our enjoyment, which in turn causes Hashem to give us our heart's desire. So try it, he says. When a positive event is unfolding, practice abandoning your doubts about the outcome and enjoying it even before it comes to its conclusion. So put the cynic to rest and don't start taking the attitude of, the other shoe's going to drop. Enjoy it fully as though the entire outcome turned out exactly as you wanted, because Hashem is going to grant you your heart's desires. Okay, so we have 14 minutes, so I want to do chapter 45. And this chapter, okay, so this chapter says the following: commit your way to Hashem, rely on him, and he will act. Okay, so imagine that all your problems were all packed away in a rolling suitcase. So we go back to the traveling analogy we've been using. Okay, so you're traveling and all your problems are in the suitcase. You roll it to the airport, you roll it onto the luggage conveyor belt, and away it goes. It's true that you're the one rolling it from the house to the car to the airport to the baggage claim, the baggage check, but you don't have to bear the weight of it. Rolling it relieves you of the burden. So it's rolling. So let's talk about this, because it says commit your way to Hashem, rely on him, and he will act. So now he's saying that the Radak gives us this type of interpretation of rolling the suitcase, meaning I don't have to carry the suitcase. Yes, I'm taking it from here, there, but I'm rolling it. Because the Radak looks at the first word of this pasuk, which is gol al Hashem darkecha. It says gol, we translate it as commit, but he says that the literal meaning is roll. David HaMelech is telling us that we can roll all of our troubles onto Hashem, and he's going to do the heavy lifting. It's like that famous story of, he says it here in the book. Yeah, it's coming up, but I'll say it now. The story of the man who's schlepping to the marketplace, and he's carrying a big, his big sack with all his stuff to the marketplace, and he's schlepping and walking with his big sack. And a wealthier individual drives by in his wagon and stops and asks the man, do you want a ride? Can I give you a lift? You look like you're schlepping a heavy burden over there. Just come in my wagon. I have room in the wagon. Just come. I'll take you to the marketplace. Beautiful. So he gets on and they're going in the wagon and with the horses. And the wealthier man says to the other man that he gave a lift, he says, sir, you didn't put your sack, you didn't put your bag down. You can put a bag, you can rest, you don't keep holding it. And the man says, no. How could I impose my weight onto your horses and your wagon? It's enough that you're carrying me, but should you also carry the weight of my sack? And the wealthy man says, are you crazy? You actually think that my horses, the wagon is not carrying the weight of your sack, right? So that's the same idea. Do you actually think that Hashem is not carrying your problems? Why in the world are you carrying your burden? Why are you acting like you're already in the wagon? The wagon is carrying you on the sack. Put the bag down already, right? So Hashem, if you think Hashem is not carrying your bag, your load, give it over. Stop carrying it. He's carrying it. Why are you doing the work here? Okay. So this is what happens when we do our ishtadlus with bitachon, when we do our effort with bitachon, right? Because we have to do our effort, because we said in Shar Bitachon is condition number 5 for bitachon. To be bitachon, you have to do effort. Okay, so what does it mean? We have to do effort, but we also have to trust in Hashem, and He's the one carrying the burden. And we said before that He's the one who's going to provide us, and He's going to provide us with ample livelihood, and He's going to provide the desires of your heart, right? But I still have to go do my effort. So what's happening here? Okay, so what's happening here is what's explained in the Gate of Trust. It says that here again, we have a job to do. We have to do it. But these are just mechanics. They're the physical actions that put us in the right place to receive Hashem's bracha. But our minds and our hearts, our feelings, our emotions should be free of the burden. We can't be schlepping the burden. We just have to be sitting on the wagon and going and doing the thing. But we cannot be emotionally and mentally burdened by this. That is the problem, right? The real sweet spot here is to be able to engage with the ishtadlus, to do it, right? But unload the burden. The sad part is to do the ishtadlus and carry all the burden, and it's so heavy in our head and our hearts, or we're an emotional wreck, we're a basket case, and we can't sleep at night thinking about the client and the this and the money and the right? That's not that's a bitachon. That's ishtadlus, all ishtadlus. And Hashem says, and the Shar Bitachon says, no, you have to do ishtadlus, but it has to be with bitachon, right? It cannot be ishtadlus that's all consuming. It just has to be ishtadlus, which means literally going through the motions. As he tells us, you just have to go and serve Hashem in the world. You're not supposed to worry about it. You're not supposed to carry the burden. Reb Chaim of Volozhin describes this distinction as the difference between carrying a big, square, heavy trunk or transporting goods in a barrel. The trunk is clumsy and cumbersome. Its full weight falls on us. The barrel, on the other hand, requires nothing more than a tap and some steering to get it where it needs to go. Likewise, when a person does ishtadlus with bitachon, he only needs to roll it along, right? So you have the big, heavy, clumsy trunk, right? Or you have this barrel that rolls and you just get it to where it needs to go. Or as he was telling us at the beginning with the mashal of the luggage that had the wheelie, has the wheels, and you're just carrying it. Okay, so you're taking the thing, but it's not heavy on you. You're not schlepping the luggage. It has wheels, you're rolling it. Right? When a person does ishtadlus with bitachon, he only needs to roll it along. Hashem takes care of the rest. Sadly, however, people insist on carrying the load, just like the person in this mashal that I told you about, the guy who went on the wagon. Okay, so he tells us the story here. And then he says, when we carry our worries around in our mind, we are being as foolish as the passenger of the wagon who thinks that the wagon and the horses are not carrying his load. It is as if we don't realize that Hashem is already carrying us. He's already doing it. Another explanation of the words, commit your way to Hashem, is that our success depends on our commitment, on our acting l'shem shamayim, on our acting in the service of Hashem, because we want to serve Hashem, right? When our goal is to fulfill Hashem's will, we can count on Him to act on our behalf. The commentaries explain that in the Pasuk, David HaMelech is referring to his fight against Goliath. David tells him, you are coming with your sword, but what am I coming with, right? What did David come to? Like, he's facing the giant Goliath. What is he coming to, right? Goliath has a sword. What is David coming to battle with? He's coming with the name of Hashem that you cursed, right? He's a representative of Hashem. Goliath cursed Hashem, and Hashem is coming with the name of Hashem. In other words, David is saying, I don't have a natural way to beat you. Right? There's no way. You're bigger. You have a sword. Naturally, there's no way. But I do have a supernatural way. What's my power? What's the power of the Baal Bitachon? The big secret of the Baal Bitachon, which is not a secret, is his bitachon. He's walking with Hashem. It's Hashem, right? I'm coming to you, L'Shem Shamayim. It's like this Rashaim now in Iran. Somebody was posting that one of them was telling the other one, I don't know, it's like whatever, if it's true or not, it doesn't matter, but it's good anecdotally, right? That he really should not mess with the Jews, right? It's like, because some of these people actually are spiritually a little bit more sophisticated. They understand, as Rashaim as they are, right? They understand, actually, it's good to bark and bark a lot, but now when push comes to shove, actually don't provoke them so much. Like let's not get into a whole thing, because we might end up like Haman, right? They actually know, right? So don't mess with the Jews, because they're tiny, they're a tiny nation, they're a tiny country, but man, they have something, and that something is called God, right? He fights their battles. It's inexplicable, right? But maybe we shouldn't mess with them. Okay, so what's troubling us? What's troubling you, says Rabbi Sutton. So a deeper look into the meaning of goal, of role, which is again the first word of our pasuk here, where it says, Gol al Hashem darkecha, commit your way to Hashem, rely on him and he will act. So again, commit also in the simple literal meaning is role. There's another important insight here. The root of the word is gola, which can mean reveal, as we've learned several times in this class. Okay, reveal. Geula, right? Same word, revelation. The Maharash, Labes Levi, relates this meaning to a visit of the doctor. To receive the doctor's help, we have to reveal everything pertaining to our health. Okay, if we go to the doctor and we want the doctor to help us, we actually have to reveal all the things. A person can't hide that he smokes, or that he eats a gallon of ice cream a day, or that he does certain drugs or whatever it is. He has to tell the doctor everything. He has to trust the doctor with this information, knowing that based on this, the doctor can help him. So the same is true when a person seeks help from a therapist. Again, he has to reveal his thoughts, his anxieties, his relationship issues, everything that impacts his emotional life. Only when we reveal what is bothering us can a professional identify a course of treatment. So now we can interpret the verse as reveal to Hashem, right? Because it says Gol al Hashem, Gola, reveal to Hashem all your paths, everything that you're going through. When we have worries, we're advised to talk them out, to share them with someone who cares and can help. Well, who's the right person to talk them with if it's not, or the right entity to go talk them with if it's not Hashem, the one who can actually do something? That someone, capital S, according to many commentaries, is Hashem. We have one address, Yud K Vav K. I'm not saying don't talk to your therapist. I'm not saying don't talk to your best friend, but we have to know exactly what the objective is. The objective is to get the clarity of mind so that I can actually go and express myself and fully depend on the one who is fully dependable. There's no therapist saving me here. It's actually Hashem, right? And there's no friend saving me here. It's actually Hashem. He's the one address, Yud K Vav K. We can tell Hashem everything that bothers us, even the things we're afraid to reveal to anyone else. And you can argue, oh, but doesn't Hashem know it already, right? But isn't also part, yes, of course he knows it. But part of the relationship is our ability to cast our burden upon him, to demonstrate to him, I'm trusting you. I'm coming to you. I'm not coming to my friend and my therapist and my everybody else and my client and my employer. I'm coming straight to you because I know the solution is with you. That's it. So imagine Hashem sees us coming to everybody else, right? But not talking to him, not coming to him, not depending on him, right? We can, God forbid, we can ask him, Hashem, to guide us because he is the doctor, right? We reveal to him everything just like we would have to do with the doctor so the doctor can help us. So the same way, Hashem is the one who's going to help us. So we reveal everything to him so that he can guide us. He is the therapist. He's the mechanic. He's the contractor. He's the one who's going to resolve our problems. And therefore, we need to tell him everything. Rely on him and he will act. All right, recap. When we roll our troubles onto Hashem, we don't have to bear the weight of them. Remember the guy in the wagon, okay? Don't bear the weight of your stuff. The wagon is holding it. We minimize our ishtadlus and lighten the burden on our mind, right? The ishtadlus is we're just going, but we're rolling and we're not carrying the whole thing, right? If we're staying up late at night and we're stressed and we can't sleep and this is all consuming, forget about it, right? You remember Bitachon, the litmus test is how are we emotionally? How are my emotions? Am I an emotional wreck or do I have equanimity even as I'm doing the work, even as I'm involved and doing my ishtadlus? Hashem carries our burdens even when we think we are doing it ourselves. When we act l'shem shamayim, Hashem ensures our success. If we tell Hashem all our problems and rely on him to take care of them, he will act on our behalf. Try it. Is your ishtadlus weighing you down? Try to keep it confined to your physical efforts and roll the emotional burden onto Hashem. Very, very good. Okay, so any questions or comments? And welcome to our new ladies in the room. Any questions or comments or stories?
This looks like it hasn't even affected me. Yeah.
And what quality of life is that? Can you imagine that our emotions are tied to the stock market? That's crazy, right? If you think about it now, it's like, what? I would allow myself to do that, to go through that roller coaster. What's completely
That's the life you should know.
Thank you for sharing us. It gives us inspiration, but that is a life of Bitachon. All right, ladies. Actually, I should say now we are not going to have class next week because I'm going to be out of town. And then the following week, I'm also going to be out of town. So it's 2 Thursdays that I'm going to be out of town. So we will resume. And good Shabbos, everyone.
Okay.